The geomod system of the original Red Faction was really pushing the hardware of the time. We wanted to go further. We wanted to do a game where you could bring down buildings piece by piece, but the hardware just wasn't there. So when we started hearing about the capabilities of the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, then we decided to reopen up the franchise with a whole new destruction system.
As you're playing through other games that tout destruction, you'll find that what you're seeing in all cases is a special effect. When you get into Red Faction Guerrilla, what you'll find is a true physics-based and stress-based destruction system.
In RFG, you physically destroy things the way you'd expect it to work in real life. Buildings have materials and weight. They creak and groan when they're under stress. They come down based on where the damage occurred.
It is just based on a series of physical rules. Because we built the system in such a generic manner, you can do any number of different types of damage. They're going to get applied the same way.
Everything that you do to cause destruction in the world is done because of where you place that charge, where that explosive round hit the structure. If you can pick out the structural elements on a building, place your charges appropriately, you're going to take that thing down much more easily than just with randomly placed charges. We've found that it's almost been necessary to teach our environment artists and our structure artists to be structural engineers.
The programmers got so good at simulating stress on the buildings, it turned into less, how are we going to make this thing fall apart, into more, how are we going to make this thing stay together. Say, for example, I have a two-story building that's just full of glass on the first story and then a cement wall above that, and then on top of that a roof and maybe a smokestack. If I don't create the appropriate infrastructure of I-beams and metal braces and firm foundation, I put this in game, it's going to fall apart on itself. Our stress system kicks in, the weight of the materials are calculated, the thickness of the materials all comes to play, and it just can't support itself. We become less and less just a 3D structure artist and more like architects.
Across the sovereignty, from the ashes of New York to the loneliest, most barren corner of Damnation, nothing remains. Nothing.
I'm Jacob Minkoff, lead game designer at Blue Omega Entertainment, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the unique way we designed the levels for Damnation. In Damnation, we have these levels that are absolutely massive, have huge vertical height, and are much more organic and multi-layered than levels you would typically see in a shooter. Traditionally, level design is often done on graph paper. You simply do top-down views of the player path through it. But in Damnation, we couldn't really do that because the overall feeling of being a huge, realistic space was so important to us that we actually started out with the concept art. When we started the development of Damnation, we didn't realize just how much verticality was going to be needed. In the example of our first design for Boomtown, it was a very small area. We thought that, 6 stories would be huge. The next version was much more compact. Maybe there were buildings that were 10 stories in it now. And the final design for Boomtown is a massive canyon. And the steam generator itself is about 40 or 50 stories tall, and it now takes the player a good 30 minutes to climb from the base of the steam engine to the top. So once we finally got this vision from the concept artist that we said, yes, that is Boomtown, it was this pencil sketch, and we went ahead and we drew on top of it. So the level designers would look at that image and they would circle different locations and say, oh, it would be really cool if the player went from here to here to here. In the case of the mines in Boomtown, the mines were designed as this huge cavern with a spire going up the center of it, and all sorts of different buildings built into the cavern walls along the side of the mines. The level designers went ahead and drew paths on top of it, and they said, okay, well, there are all these cool elements in this image. Let's look at that and say, it would be really cool if the player had to climb into this building and had to get onto the rooftop. It would be really interesting if they had to cross over this canyon a few different times. And we'd put the gameplay into the image. I think that we really succeeded in our goal of bringing these epic artistic visuals to a much more mainstream shooter. Be sure to check it out on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC.